I am a child of God, based on John 1:12. I am a new creation in Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:17. I am more than a conqueror through him who loved us, Romans 8:37. Hi, I'm Megann Marcellino. Welcome back to Generations at the Table. Thank you so much for pulling up a seat with me today. We're going to jump right in, and I want to talk to you about fresh starts and making those fresh starts. As we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah, it's all about starting a new year and kind of living intentionally towards where you want to go. And so I love that about Rosh Hashanah. I love that about the opportunity for a fresh start. It's actually one of the things that I really embrace about embracing the Hebrew calendar is that we get fresh starts at Passover, Rosh Hashanah, and then we obviously add in our Gregorian New Year. So when 2025 comes, we have another chance. So for me, it works to have 3 times a year versus just, once. And I realize that every day is made new in Yeshua and that we have forgiveness. And I understand all of that, but that mental place of okay, this is a new change. This is a season change. This is a moment of transition. And we're really going into that in the fall feast. There is going to be a shift and a transition that begins with Rosh Hashanah. And so I'm really passionate about helping you connect with those prophetic patterns of God, not just so that it's you can say that you did, but so that you can use those to unlock your destiny, your purpose, and your identity. I think they're key and foundational. They've really become that for me. And so I want to share that with you. And Rosh Hashanah is really a perfect time to reflect on the year that we've had and the year that we're going into. Not only 2024, but just the Hebrew year. And then what are you going to want for 2025? It's kind of a way to get a jump start. And we're going to just explore today how we can embrace that habit and pattern. So let's look at a biblical story of a fresh start. What does that mean? And I think that Noah is a story that really exemplifies a huge fresh start, but also the different attributes of it, all of the pain that would have been there, the confusion. And so if we look at Noah and the ark after the flood, right? Let's forget about the years and years and years it took to build the ark and the waiting on the rain and all the questioning that must have happened. What about you can disregard for the moment, for today's discussion, the journey to get there. Let's just talk about how they must have felt when the ark doors opened. And this was a completely new beginning, a new world. Everything that they were familiar with was gone. Everyone outside of their immediate family was gone. It had to have been, in a sense, painful and confusing, just watching everything disappear, everyone disappear, and then the required waiting to get them there, because they had a season on the ark, in the ark, just waiting, I guess having an idea of what was happening on the outside, but nothing confirmed. It wasn't like Noah and his family were sitting there on their iPhones scrolling through social media and being remember that family? That wasn't happening. It had to have been very isolating. And then it required a lot of obedience and sacrifice to be able to get off the ark and basically possess the land that was ahead of them, possess the world and have a fresh start. So Genesis 8:15-17 says this: Then God spoke to Noah saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and cattle and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and it would be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah's fresh start was more than just about survival. It was about embracing a new identity. It was about abounding and being fruitful and taking possession and living in the purpose that God had assigned to Noah and his family. God immediately speaks to him, though, about abundance, right? It doesn't say you're mourning the loss of everything you've known and you're stepping into this new identity. He says that they may abound on the earth, be fruitful and multiply. So that speaks to God's provision, right? That there was more than enough for them, more than enough for every living thing that had come with him. And I can only imagine that, God's go and prosper in your fresh start. And Noah is now what? How do I do that? Everything has changed. Everyone is gone. Fresh starts often involve us saying, okay, now what? But it also involves us saying, okay, God, yes, I will step out of the ark. I will step off of the boat. And so at Rosh Hashanah, we are giving an opportunity to say, I'm going to have a fresh start. And with that, I'm going to embrace the identity of who you have truly called me to be. Because see, when God called Noah from the beginning, he knew that Noah and his family were going to be the ones that would establish the new humanity. He knew that. So through the entire exercise of building the ark and waiting on God and waiting on the rain and living in holiness in the midst of an unrighteous generation, God knew that that was shaping humanity forever, because ultimately he was going to become the one from which everything else came. And so God gave instructions to Adam and Eve, right, in Genesis, and God gave instructions to the Israelites that basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, not trying to like get into a theological thing, but basically it was like, be fruitful and multiply. Go out and possess the land. Take that which you have given. Share this among your generations. God is a very generational God. God is a very family-oriented God. He is shaping families and nations to basically change and shift culture. And the kingdom is a family, right? That's what we are called to be. So God told them all, in essence, be fruitful and multiply, possess the earth, possess the promise. Go out, abound. And it's like, I can imagine that they're like, how do I walk in abundance when everything is so new? Well, if God is giving us an invitation and as we walk into this new year to possess the promise and to possess our purpose and our identity, kind of what does that look like? Can you imagine how the disciples felt after Jesus ascended? So they've gone through everything with Jesus. He was, crucified and resurrected. He was back with them for a short time, and then he ascends. I have to imagine that there must have been like this empty wondering of a void. It's an entirely new season. Even though they understood more of the big picture, there had to be a now what moment. So in Mark 16, the Complete Jewish Bible says this, verses 14 through 20. This is a little bit long, but I think it's important for you to hear. Later, Yeshua appeared to the 11 as they were eating, and he reproached them for their lack of trust and their spiritual insensitivity in not having believed those who had seen him after he had risen. Then he said to them, as you go throughout the world, proclaim the good news to all creation. Whoever trusts and is immersed will be saved. Whoever does not trust will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who do not trust in my name, and they will drive out demons, speak with new tongues, not be injured if they handle snakes or drink poison, and heal the sick by laying hands on them. So then after he had spoken to them, the Lord Yeshua was taken up into heaven and sat down at the right hand of God. And they went out and proclaimed everywhere, the Lord working with them and confirming the message of accompanying signs. So it's like this monumental moment. It's this huge climax, and God's like, here, I'm rebuking your unbelief, but here's what I want you to do. And it had to have felt just like a mind-blowing moment of choice and trust and faith. And it was followed by a decision, not a feeling. Like, this is completely new to me. This is completely foreign. We were ministering together, and then you were dead, and then you were back, and now what? And God is like, go make disciples. Here's where you kind of, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's what I have for you. And it's not just a little bit. I have signs for you. Those who trust. Signs for those who trust. Signs for those who believe. So it's similar to forgiveness. This trust and faith is less so a feeling and more so a choice at the beginning. And I think it's a choice and a habit and pattern that ultimately ignites a hard experience, but it starts with us choosing to obey and choosing to walk in the fresh start. So we're in a busy season, right? It's the fall. You've got kids in school, or you've got, all sorts of season changes happening, expectations. What's it going to look like? New teachers. Maybe you're welcoming a new baby into your family. There's all those things that happen that create really big new. Maybe it's a new career or a move. But God says, I have a fresh start for you. In the midst of all the busy, he sees you as an individual and says, will you walk in this with me? Will you possess the promise? So I think that there's a couple things that we can do, 3 things that we can do to walk in the fresh start. The first one is embracing the identity of the new, embracing the mindset. The second one is creating a habit and patterns that support this identity. And the third is walking in forgiveness, for yourself, and for others. So we're going to unpack those more, but I want you to see that we're going to talk about first embracing the identity and embracing that new mindset. So how did Noah and his family think when they exited the ark? How did the disciples think after Jesus ascended? They had to embrace the identity that, okay, we are the new humanity and we have been charged with possessing this new earth. We are the disciples and we have been charged with carrying this message to all creation. See, there's just so much there's so much wholeness and holistic to their assignments, but they had to embrace the identity of who we are. We are no longer the ones that are the only kind of righteous family building a boat, waiting on the rain. That is not our identity anymore. We are the possessors of the land. And we are no longer the disciples who work, with Jesus side by side, physically present and seen. We have been charged to carry the message, to carry the mandate, to fulfill the Great Commission. So when we embrace this new identity and this fresh start of a new year, I truly believe it starts in our mind. And it's before we have a feeling, it's more so a choice. So we have to decide and choose to embrace, I am going to be who God called me to be. I am going to be a daughter. I am going to be a son. I am going to be whatever that role is. For me, I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be a wife. I'm going to embrace my role at work. I'm going to embrace the assignment. I am going to be a podcast host. Whatever it is, I'm going to think like that person would think. And I'm not going to think like I would have thought, 10 years ago before I became a parent. I was just telling Nathan here, who's today filming, sometimes I send trips to my friends and my husband, these trips that I think I would love to take. And it's totally outside the scope of my ability right now with so many littles in the house. It's who the old Megann would have loved to have been and do. But, 10 years ago, taking a trip like that was a whole different ballgame when you're not trying to farm out kids and make plans and all of that. That's not. So now I have to embrace the identity as a mom and as a wife. And I have to live that out and set my expectation as such. So Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. So first step to you and I walking into this new year with a fresh start is not being conformed to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of our mind with the word. So we're going to change our mindset. We are going to say, okay, there is a shift happening. We are walking into 5785, and we are going to embrace all that God has for us this year, and we are going to possess the promise. So here's 3 powerful I am statements from the Bible to help us embrace this new identity. I am a child of God, based on John 1:12. I am a new creation in Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:17. I am more than a conqueror through him who loved us, Romans 8:37. I am a child of God. I am a new creation in Christ. I am more than a conqueror through him who loved us. You know what I think is so powerful as I make those decrees with you today? That's something that you and I can say sitting here at this table, but that is also something that Noah could have said or the children of Israel could have said as they were facing their fresh start. They could have recognized that because this is true about our identity, but it is necessary to begin making your decisions, to forming your habits and patterns based on how does a child of God think? How does a new creation act? And if I am more than a conqueror, what steps do I take in faith and trust? Because I am not acting like a victim of my circumstances. So we have to create, this is step number 2, we have to create habits to support this identity. Okay? So once you embrace that new identity, how do you create habits to not operate in who you used to be? How do you fully embrace that fresh start? If we look at the Great Commission, what does it say to us? It says first, trust. Trust. That's key, your trust and your belief. And second, do these things based on that faith and trust. So it's first you trust, you choose faith, and then you do this. Faith and action, hand in hand. Faith without works is dead. And based on that belief, we align our daily actions with our renewed mindset. And I think that that is really where the power is, that connection of the daily action with the renewed mindset. And then you link in God's prophetic rhythms, like the feasts of the Lord or giving, according to biblical principles, things like that. Like, man, that is that is such a launching pad between embracing the identity, embracing those daily actions, and aligning with that renewed mindset along with God's prophetic rhythms and patterns. That is where God wants us. And that's so where I'm passionate about living. And it's a challenge because the world is wanting you to embrace the world's mindset. It wants you to be conformed to the ways of the world. But God is saying, I have something better. I have something higher. 1 Timothy 4:8 says, for bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is profitable for all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. So godliness leads us into that which is to come. So that's what our daily habits and patterns do. Our habits of prayer and reading the word and worship. You could be practicing gratitude or writing in a journal, whatever it is, those are going to be really paramount to leading you towards a fresh start. So one of my steps would be, as we go through this fall feast season together and this fresh start, ask God what he has for you in this next year and then write it down and then revisit it. Because so many times I think God speaks and we don't write it down and we miss it and then we forget because life gets busy. And in the busy, we get distracted. And that is just human nature. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what's wrong is when we don't create boundaries for ourselves to walk in the best and say, okay, I know you're going to speak. I'm expecting you to speak. I'm coming with a heart of anticipation, but then I'm going to write it down. And I'm going to go back and visit this word of what you said over me and what you said that you had for me in this new year. Okay, so the next one is forgiving others and forgiving yourself. And you may feel like that is just kind of being thrown in there. That's a little left field. Let me tell you why it's not left field. Because Rosh Hashanah begins a season, a 10-day period called the Days of Awe. And during this period, it leads us up to Yom Kippur, which is the high holiest day on the Jewish calendar, and is a time of introspection. I'm going to talk to you more about this, I think, in the next episode. But here's the deal. It's a time of introspection because when you begin a fresh start, you want a clean slate. And you want that from a place of where you have forgiven others and you've forgiven yourself. And so this introspection and this healing of those wounds and that letting go of is paramount to starting your year from a place where you really want those new beginnings to be. It's instead of choosing the hard soil that's cracked and dry, you're going to go in, you're going to till the soil, you're going to water it, you're going to prepare it. This is what those 10 days are for. It is for preparing your heart for the new year. And we have to choose to learn those lessons of the hurt, to take those lessons that we've come from places of hurt and apply them so that the new year is better. Someone once gave us some wisdom and they said, if you had a moment in your life where you felt like there was a tremendous pain point, go to that moment and try and see what the lesson was in that moment. Take a moment and you just take yourself back and you're I remember this. Well, what lesson can I learn from it? What good can come from it? And then you take that lesson and you remember it and you apply it and you let the rest of it go. And for me as a believer, I say, okay, God, thank you for the opportunity for this lesson. Thank you for shaping me, but I'm going to let the negative and the bad go. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think that that's a trap of the enemy. Is when we go through bad situations, what he wants us to do is to only be able to see the bad and not be able to grow from it. So during this 10 days of introspection, you may have had some hurt this last year. I think we all have. We've had hurt, we've had disappointment. But go to that moment of that hurt and say, okay, well, what good in there was there for me? What can I learn from this moment? Even if it's what I don't want, even if it's what I don't want to happen next year. Okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to let the rest go. I'm going to forgive that person. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive that situation. And I'm going to set myself up for a fresh start. Because no one wants to start their new year from a place of bitterness and unforgiveness. So that's why I love the calendar, because it's okay, we start a fresh start and now you got 10 days and you better start working through that junk. And then we're going to repent and then we're going to celebrate covenant and tabernacling together. But God is patient and he is kind, as he is generous, and he has a path for you to walk through all of those things, to heal you and to bring you out on the other side whole, so that when your ark opens like Noah and he's go be fruitful, multiply, possess this promise, possess this land, you do so from a place of spiritual wholeness. Ephesians 4:32 says, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as Christ forgave you. I think that really is the bottom line foundation of the days of awe. Be kind, be forgiving, just as God forgave you. Seek God's forgiveness, seek the forgiveness of others. God may even challenge you and say you need to go to someone and ask them to forgive you. But forgiving sometimes is more so a choice than a feeling, but it really does cut those chains and those barriers and the things that the enemy holds us back, that we can walk forward without guilt, without shame, without resentment and bitterness, and say, my fresh start is truly a fresh start. I'm going to think like I was, or I'm going to not think like I was. I'm going to think like who I want to be. And I am going to embrace the mindset of my new identity. And I am going to do so from a place of forgiveness. So as we approach Rosh Hashanah together, I hope that you are joining us for these feasts. I hope that you are hosting your family. But I want to encourage you, don't wait for 2025 to make these changes. Make these changes now. Begin these changes in the fall feast. Of course, in 2025, I hope you go through the goals to grow with us and set those goals and those things aside. But for now, let's walk through this new Hebrew year, this new biblical year together from a place of a fresh start and embracing our identity. So here's the takeaway. Here's the steps for us in this season. Number one, embrace your new identity. Think with the mindset of who you want to be. Whatever that is, if you want to be this version of yourself, begin to filter your thoughts through that mindset. Number two, create habits that support that identity. I don't know if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits. I know Rabbi has referenced it a few times. We've gone through it. But in the book, James Clear, the author, encourages us to, if you're really truly going to make habits, to make it obvious, cue-based habits, which mean like if you're wanting to start taking your vitamins more, don't just leave them stuck in a drawer, like put them out on the bedside table so that you remember to take them first thing in the morning or buy your coffee or whatever it is. Set a trigger reminder that you can see, make it attractive, link this habit that you want in this new year to some kind of reward. Maybe it's just a small reward. Maybe it's if I don't know, cook more at home this month and we get one really nice eat out restaurant celebration, do something to reward yourself. Like that's not a bad thing, but make sure you've set up a pattern and a plan to succeed. And then the third one is make it easy. He suggests that you start with a version of the habit that you can only do in 2 minutes, and then you begin to add to that. So whatever that is, so again, you're going to make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. Because remember, you need habits and patterns to support this new identity. So how are you going to do that? And then begin from a place of forgiveness, not only with others, but with yourself. And sometimes I think we are the hardest judge of ourselves. We are our hardest critic. So what can we let go of? What lessons can we take from this last year, learn from, and move forward? How can we live in the hope of the future and without the regret and the disappointment of the past? Because God has something great for you. And he's inviting you to his table to begin to experience that. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation about fresh starts. I really believe that God has something new that he wants to do for you. In 5785, we're moving into a new year, a year of what we hope to be of grace and of favor and of activation. And so I hope that as we walk through that together, that this podcast prepares your heart for what's ahead, that you can truly begin this new year with a new, full embracing identity from a place of forgiveness and from a place of fresh start. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again next week.